Yes, she is.
Hello, and welcome to the Real Ram Fam. On my channel, I intend to provide you with a safe platform to discuss the intersections of your entire being, to be able to be comfortable in your own skin, in mission or position. There is no one like you, and we all have a purpose and message. I, for one, am a black woman, mother of four, a military veteran, and a wife, and a social worker, just to name a few. From my channel, I hope that you learn more about military families and social workers. Three of the social work values are my aim in each video: importance of human relationships, dignity and worth of the person, and social justice. No matter what you initially think when you hear social worker, there is more to the profession. Trust me. Stay locked in by subscribing to the channel and be sure that you hit that notifications bell so you don't miss any new uploads. Without further ado, on to today's episode. What's going on, Ram Fam? So, today I have with me yet another veteran. Happy Veterans Day, everyone, and also happy birthday to the Marines. So, I did not come bearing historical facts for the Air Force because my guest today is very intentional about everything that he does. So, there's two facts in one as to why we are doing this broadcast on today. So I have with me the veteran in my life, my husband, Ameer Weston. So, Ameer, if you would introduce yourself, your branch of service, and your job.
Sure. How you guys doing today? I am retired Senior Master Sergeant Amir Weston. Did 24 years in the U.S. Air Force. I started out in the Air Force as a ground radio journeyman. We call them ground rats. AFSC, or the career field, it's no longer there. I did that for about 5 years before the career field split into two, to the airfield component side of it and the more satellite uh, focus side of the career field. And from there, I've done other various jobs after that that range from special operations to defense attache, and finally finishing off in the in Cybercom.
So, for people who do not know what a senior master sergeant is, what is that pay grade?
So in the structure, we have E1 being the lowest, E9 being the highest, and then this is the pay grade structure. E8 is just below E9.
So, since I did not have the historical fact, tell everybody why today. What is so significant about today?
1 year ago today, I retired from the United States Air Force.
And why did you choose this day? So not only he retired, this was the day of his ceremony, and he chose that day and that time. Why?
Because it's Veterans Day.
Uh-huh. But some people don't even know what that means.
Yeah, I wanted to time it out the 11th day of the 11th hour of the 11th month to go along with the original armistice that from World War One, and eventually became Veterans Day. So I wanted to do it on that day, kind of honor the rest of the veterans that were out there coming before me.
So, with everyone else, there's a reason, people, why I thought of this specific icebreaker that I have been doing, because all Black people, we are not the same. So he and I, we come from two different cultures. He like to call me country. I ain't country. I am from the Midwest. And where do you call home?
Home in Savannah, Georgia.
And so he's a Southerner, but of course, throughout the years, he has changed. And so you are what? You're not just a Southerner, you're what specifically?
I didn't change. I was Gullah Geechee
Okay,
when
you
I came in.
specify. He's a Gullah Geechee.
That's
So
right.
that's not the same as Midwest whatsoever. We have different cultures going on in this family. So to embrace that and see how others live in their culture, I have this icebreaker that you may or may not have been seeing. So, and just because it's him, I'm going to share my answers. So, Ameer, say that.
That's water.
It's water.
Two.
H word.
Hair.
Her.
Here.
What?
That's a mixed one. I call it different things, but I'm gonna stick with one. We'll say sneaker.
Tennis shoes and sometimes gym shoes.
That's a grocery buggy.
It's a shopping cart.
Basket. Or a tote.
A hand basket. A shopping basket.
It's another tote. Or a purse.
Get me out of this. That's a billfold. That's what my elders in the family called it, a billfold.
Tote again. Purse. That's an alley.
Oh, now he's calling it an alley. That's not what he called it.
What I call it before.
You know what you called that?
What I said?
You said that's called a lane.
That is a lane, but I'm looking at the whole thing. You can't have the.
That's you said it was called a lane.
It is a lane.
No, that's the alley.
It's a lane that's going
down
the
alley. This entrance of the house.
Man, we don't got no names for that.
Okay, so I didn't have a name when I grew up. It's just called the hallway, the doorway, or the entrance way.
It's a hallway, but it goes to the den. That's where it's going.
Boy versus girls.
That's a den. Let's say a slushy, but you know about that's a slushy.
Slushy.
Now you know we say in Team Savannah, that's a thrill.
That's an icy cup or a freeze cup.
Too many words. Yeah, that's a buttload of stuff. That came from the military.
I say buttload as well, but I've been hearing lately that it's a boatload, but no, it's a buttload. It's a buttload.
But you get that's two spaces, so you trick me.
Yeah, that's how you spell it.
But if you say, I didn't even see the T.
Okay. And then this.
And that's we call everything a T-shirt, but a shirt.
So it's a wife beater or an undershirt.
Might be no wives.
It's an undershirt. So that is it, you guys. We only have. Thank you. So different cultures, different things. That's just a small little icebreaker. So, Ameer, so 24 years. Why did you decide to retire?
That's a complex answer. But it was time. You know, I was told when I was young that you'll hit that point in time where you'll feel it. And one day I woke up and I was like, this ain't it. I kind of looked at what my path forward would be, making E9. What would that mean for the family? It would mean at least 2 to 3 more moves. It was just something that I wasn't willing to do. So, yeah, I decided to hit the retirement button.
So that was 35 years ago.
Who said that? I didn't say 35.
That's what David is asking. That was 35 years ago.
That I retired?
No, 35 years ago when you was gonna get out. I think that's what he's saying.
Internet man is trolls out there. So
Did you have family members in the military?
Yeah, my whole life. So my granddad retired from the army. He was a signal corps in the army. My dad retired from the army. He was crew chief. Uncle, mom's brother, was in the army, also retired. My other uncle, my dad's brother, was in the U.S. Air Force. Uncles was in Vietnam War. My little brother was in the Marines. My
We're
wife
talking about before you joined.
was in the Air Force. Yeah, I mean, but my whole life, of course, as I've been in one continuous stream of being surrounded by the military. But yeah, before I met this woman right here, yeah, I had like 8 or 9 individuals that was probably next to me that was currently in or had retired or separated from the military.
What made you decide to join the Air? What made you decide to join, and was the Air Force your first choice?
Because I wasn't getting no college scholarship. That's what that was going to happen. I had a partial to a university I shall not name here. I didn't understand really the uh, how to go to college without racking up a lot of student debt. Um, there were a lot of programs out there. I just didn't understand how to execute them. And then one of my homeboys who just retired, Gus Wright, kind of came to me and said, "Man, you should go in the military, but with your scores, you should go in the Air Force." And earlier that year, actually no, the year prior, I had taken the ASVAB test, and that's the aptitude test that enlisted take to help the military figure out what job they're going to assign to them. And they were like, "Hey, you can you get a day out of school if you come take this ASVAB test." And so I had taken that prior. Yeah, it was a free day out. So that was already on the records. And then it kind of lined up when Gus was like, "Hey, man, you should really think about the military." Took me down and talked to the JROTC commander, which I had been kicked out 3 years prior of JROTC. But he looked at my scores and said, "Hey, man, these are really good scores. You should think about going into the Air Force." But I was surrounded by most of the Army, so I'm gonna go Army. I want to do some of the cool stuff, what my dad did, what my granddad did, and my stepdad also was in the Army, and he was a weatherman in the Army, and so he used to take me out with them and release the weather balloon and look at the instruments. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm going into the Army because I want to blow some stuff up. I want to do something similar." And so the Army recruiter came by the house, came by my grandma's house. And when he stepped in, he became instantly intimidated because all the family were there and they wanted to hear his pitch. But we have all these pictures of all the military men up on the wall, and that iconic photo that all people take when they come in the military or get updated, but it's the one of your service dress and you're looking straight ahead. Those eyes were staring right at him, and it's like 4 or 5 photos up there, and they're staring down at him. And the family was just not having anything that the Army recruiter was pitching. So that dude never came back and never contacted me again. So I was like, "Yeah, I'll check this Air Force thing out." Went there, talked to the recruiter. That dude was sharp. Had his blue uniform on, and he was on top of his game, and he was a straight shooter. He said, "Here's your scores. Here is what is available to you. Here's my opinion. These jobs right here, people are going to offer it to you, such as cop or something else." He said, "Yo, don't take those jobs, man." He said, "You have these jobs in front of you. Demand that you want these jobs right here." And he wasn't, it's the Air Force, so we ain't in a rush to recruit anybody. So he gave me time to kind of work through that and make sure I picked the job that I wanted, and I really liked that. So It is. I enlisted in the Air Force.
So walk us through the night before you left and the day that you left.
Yeah. So I lived in an area called West Savannah, and it's not as urban as Savannah can get as the east side of town, and maybe some of the some of the centers of the town that's a little newer. So it's close knit, especially when I was growing up. And we had a neighbor that I called. She was like a second mom, and her sons Kenneth and Spike. They were my brothers, and she took care of me. Sometimes when we were struggling to make ends meet, she made sure that we ate. She threw me a great party, fantastic going away party the night before, and it was amazing. They hail from New York, but she was Gullah Geechee, and so that was my night before, and that was amazing. That really helped me because I got to see some people that spoke some good words to me prior to shipping off. And then the next morning, my dad came by, grabbed me, and took me down to the recruiting station. And said some words to me. I was nervous, and the recruiter said, "Hey, we got him from here." It's history.
So right here, you get to talk. Y'all know he can talk. You have 15 minutes. 15 minutes where talk about your career, whatever it is that you want to say. Chronologically.
I
don't know. Whatever. 15 minutes.
But I had a blessed career. I got to do, practically what I wanted to do in the military. But I started as a ground radio troop in tech school, and I was told, do not go combat communications. The dudes are crazy. They're always going places. You can find another chill job and ease your way through the Air Force. And I was like, all right, yeah, cool. And I love playing basketball. So I got the hoop. That was my thing. I was hooping at tech school. I was like, this Air Force thing is the best thing ever. But we had like 10 blocks of instruction. The blocks were like a month and a half, 2 months long for each of the blocks that went from like basic electronics to all the way to the actual physical items that you're going to be working on and employing. And I was at block 9 of 10. And it was the tactical block. And it was setting up antennas, setting up radios, aligning stuff. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. And that was the block I scored my highest in. We get, block 9 is the culmination block. We graduate. Everyone in the class has their orders, and they're going to Hawaii, going to Germany, and I'm still sitting there like I still haven't gotten my orders, and I'm like, yo, this is crazy. I mean, where am I going to get orders to? And boom, I get the 5th combat comm. And I'm like, oh, everybody told me don't do this right here, and I was trying to figure out how can I get out of this thing. Because I didn't know. All I knew is people telling me that's just a crazy path right there. Don't take it. You're not getting out of these orders. Right. You want okay. And so I take it. Then I get to Warner Robins, Georgia, and that's my first duty assignment. And the mob was probably the best place for me to go because I hadn't smoothed out yet. So having a place where I can be, let my energy out a little bit and not necessarily get in a whole lot of trouble. And if I did, there were a lot of physical tasks that can be assigned to me to help me grow. And so the mob was the perfect place. It taught me a lot about the operational side of the Air Force. We're the Air Force. So I got to understand how to employ airfields, how to set up command and control systems, how to do that initial portion of when we go to war. It's bringing a combat wing into place, getting all of that air traffic control, command and control, long range communications in place, so we can then start bringing in more and more forces. So I leave from there, and it was just after 9/11. My wife got orders, so we went off to Whiteman Air Force Base, and that was the home of the B-2. I thought that was it. That was it for the career. It's in Knob Nossum, Missouri. You can look it up. Ain't much there. And I remember that first night, all we heard is like cows and stuff mooing at night. Yes. She's no, whatever. I was like, this is terrible. Why? What did I do? And I'm coming. In Georgia, I just went only like 90 miles away, 100 miles away from where I grew up. So I'm still back in my home state, but now I'm out here in Missouri, back in I'm in her neck of the woods, and man, that was an experience. But I said it helped me because it exposed me to different parts of the United States. I fell in love with that style of barbecue that was there. It was delicious. So I was like, okay, I guess I could find something with this place. But I got to deploy several times there, and during those deployments, they would definitely mature me, and it helped set me up for my next step in the Air Force. So from there, I got to go do some cool stuff. I got to be assigned to special operation units while I was deployed. And I was like, this is it right here. I love doing this right here. Adventure. I get to see the world, and I don't have to necessarily adhere to all of the normal rules the Air Force would place upon me. It was great. So I went and assessed for the Joint Communications Unit. It is a communications element, an elite communications element that's assigned to JSOC, and they do a host of things. Hit me up if you guys want to try it out. But the thing that it exposed me to that was probably the most formative is it put me around a lot of smart people at different levels. And I was pushed. There was always someone smarter than you there, guaranteed. And I mean like magnitude smarter than you. So when you think you thought something through, you might just be talking to the expert who created it. And so that gave me a better understanding of how world dynamics work, especially when it came to counterterrorism, and understanding just different things about the world, and then different capabilities that our military and the U.S. government can bring to bear. And so from that, it put me in contact with diplomats, and so we did training cross path with diplomats from the State Department. And so being able to talk with those individuals, they introduced me to the Defense Attaché Service. And I was like, yeah, these guys walk around in suits and stuff. And I'm like, I don't have to carry a rucksack on my back anymore. And they teach me a second language game. And it would give some better perks to the family. Just because you can live in some cool places. So in there, left out of Joint Communications down at Fort Bragg. So after we left out of Fort Bragg, we went to Washington D.C. for a year or so of training, And then from there, we went to Burundi. I did. The family didn't get to come to that one. But then we went to Switzerland next, where we spent some years out in Switzerland. And then over to Burkina Faso. The family was there for a little bit, but it was some security and political instability. So the family had to come back when I finished the tour there. And then, I was starting to get a little tired. And but U.S. Cybercom up at Fort Meade said, hey, we'd love to have you. So I went there, spent about a year or so doing some work work there. Not even that. That's not even true. Maybe half a year before I hit the retirement button, and then finished up that. In the career, I did a skill bridge at a cybersecurity company, and here I am.
You actually have like 6 more minutes.
Yes, I have 6 more minutes.
6 more minutes.
Yeah, I can keep going. I don't wanna blow the time.
It's your time.
But
you said that. What did you want to fill it up? You got something?
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
You said that in the mob they have physical things to employ you when you got in trouble. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean?
So it is a combat communications unit, right? So a traditional base, you go there that has an airfield linked to the base, they will have an air traffic control tower there. Well, the mob is going to bring that type of capability. It's going to physically pack up an air traffic control tower that's going to be on back of a Humvee. We're going to bring that with us. But to employ that, you got to run cables. You got to lift. It's a motorized system, but there's a system inside of it in case the motor burns out, where you got to hand spin it or try to use a power drill, but the drill ain't that good. So it's going to be a lot of hand spinning. That will wear you out. For like every 2,000 rotations, you may go like, a quarter of an inch. And so that thing needs to go up off of its lift, another 8 or 9 feet, the tire to come up off of the Humvee. And so you can imagine that's a lot of turning, and that's a perfect thing to give a young airman who's misbehaving. You got to ground equipment, you got to ground the system, and so you got to drive grounding stakes into the ground. That's not an E8 job. That's definitely going to be a E2, E3 job, and definitely the one that's acting up. So all of that physical stuff that is needed to put that stuff in place, cables, antennas, that is great training, right? You can do that a million times over. And we would set up, pull down, set up, tear down, pack it up again, clean it off, wash it, do all of that over and over again. And so I was definitely at the end of some of that training. When I misbehaved, I'll leave it at that. The statute of limitations is still in place.
Okay. So then that is going to take me to I don't know which way I want to go now. Well, you started talking about, well, first of all, Jasmine says, thank you, Jasmine.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You talked about the fact that there were some tours where we had to stay behind or we just were not together. So let's just go a little bit to talk about your parenting. No, were you able to be present for the birth of all of your children?
Yeah, I was lucky on that one. I was able to be present for the birth of all the kids. And I got to spend a little bit of time, afterwards with the kids once they were born. So I know some people miss that in their career. I was fortunate not only to be present, but to actually, I think I got to catch all of my kids when they popped out. So I was fortunate for that. And so
did the military shape the way that you parent or your idea of parenting?
Yeah, I mean, because I came from a military family, right? So people were always over the horizon that you cared about. So that itself wasn't necessarily new to me, um, but it was definitely difficult because I wasn't the one, or I was on the receiving end of, my dad's over there. But now I'm trying to figure this thing out, how to be a dad, and stay focused on the mission as my the family grows up. And so that was difficult sometimes, because I wanted to see those first soccer goals, those first steps or whatever. So thank goodness for the improvement of technology, because I would have missed out on a lot more.
So I'm gonna come back to this. I'm likely gonna come back to this area of your life. But Jasmine has a question. What was the most challenging, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, there was a lot of challenging things, um, right? Because you're not just one person, right? You are a dad, and so that piece was um, very challenging. Tawana would do a lot to make sure that I can see them, pictures, uh, the units that was in the beginning. We use some of its dedicated precious resources of airtime through satellites to be able to call back and talk with the family or do monthly VTCs. And so that was that was necessary, because there were tough times, tough days, especially during the period of time in which I was serving. We were fighting several wars. We were at war. Um, and so some days I just didn't know what it was, especially after we survived the attack on base or something like that. I didn't know what was going to happen. So like being a dad, that was definitely fearful, right? Because I'm like, is this going to be the last time? Or was that the last time I would ever see them? Um, but I had really good people around me to kind of help me stay focused or whatever, and not lose myself. And I think this professionally, what was difficult is it's you got to do your job in the military. That's what it is, right? We shouldn't necessarily have opinions, but we're humans, so we're going to have opinions. And so, watching some of the geopolitics of the world was difficult, because you would see that we would help this group of people, but we wouldn't help this group of people, and it was hard to make sense of that at times. And so that can it mentally start to wear on you, because you're trying to figure out your place in the world, and you're like, wow, why are we doing this as a country? Why won't we do this? Um, and so that was definitely a tough period to kind of go through. Is to stay focused. I had to focus on like my brothers and sisters in the military. That's what I'm here for. Um, so there's some greater idea that some people may be following.
So following up with Jasmine's perfect segue. So did you have to overcome any adversity?
Yeah. Um, and there's some weird people in the military, and people come in with their ideas from when they grew up. Um, it's kind of some of those early years in the Air Force, even in tech school. Um, there were some weirdo. I mean, they were racist, and you're getting the message that Air Force doesn't care about anything but you being an airman, right? And I appreciated that, coming from the great state of Georgia, where race is a thing. And so now I'm being told, hey, you're in a system that they're going to look at your merit. I'm like, oh yeah, I like this right here, because then I can compete against somebody straight up. Some people are going to be faster than me, some people are going to be smarter than me, but everybody's not. And I feel like I can compete with anyone. And then kind of running into people that can't see past the color of your skin, or even sometimes the culture that you're a part of. And I had to navigate that, because I was a nerd. I was a nerd when I came in, and I like doing nerd stuff. But I wanted to do it my way. I didn't want to be like there's no one way to be a nerd, and sometimes the Air Force or maybe other branches too, like this is how we're going to be a nerd. Nerds talk like this. Nerds look like this. The nerd is the guy who's sitting there typing real fast on a keyboard, drinking a Monster, and that might be the ideal. That's what a nerd is. Got a hoodie on, is doing this stuff. A nerd couldn't beat a kid who had a really good jump shot, and knew how to code, and knew how to troubleshoot, and understand electronics, and like watching people get beat up. Watching the MMA. Right, that wasn't a nerd, right? And so sometimes when people understand, they see that side of you, or they see you listening to rap music or something like that, and you bobbing your head, and they can't distinguish that a person could be all of that. And so I had to learn how to navigate that, because I didn't want to lose myself. I'm like, hey man, this is stuff that I like too, and I shouldn't be boxed in or whatever. And having rank helped out too, because I could be like, I don't care what you guys saying, and I can start pushing forward. But those are definitely tough times, because I was trying to, just like every young person, I was trying to figure myself out and figure out the world around me. And so those are tough.
I see your question, Jasmine. It's already on the docket, so I don't want to ask it now, because that's close. That's close to the end. So I'm not ignoring it. What is one misconception about the Air Force or your job in communications that you would like people to understand? So you just talked about like a nerd should look a certain way, but is there anything else or anything specific?
Yeah, I mean, all the branches, right, are branded. The Army is the Army, right, and they have their amazing commercials, right, legendary slogans. Be all you can be, right, and that's, they had to bring it back. It was so legendary. The Marines, they look great, and they're one of the world's greatest fighting forces, and that's no doubt. And they have that beat into them, and they understand their place in the world. So does the Army. The Navy has is rich in tradition, and then they pull in support, and they all stand out there and their rights. It's like iconic, and then you get the Air Force, right? And they're like, oh, look, you guys have no history. You got no traditions. And sometimes you might even start believing that if you're around other branches of service or inside of joint forces. And so, it's like, oh, the Air Force is for the smart people, right? And that becomes our brand. The all of the branches of service are simply doctrine that our bosses above us have written for us. The Air Force is the way the Air Force is because it needs to be that way. What we are, it's bar none the best Air Force on the planet. We're the best Air Force anyone ever knew. We do our jobs well, right? We're not a ground combat force, and so that's not our specialty. Do we got individuals within the Air Force construct that can do that? Yes, and they do that well. Um, our tradition is doing things well. We solve problems relatively quickly. There are issues because it's an organization that's based on humans at the end of the day. So there are always going to be challenges that we need to overcome. But Air Force is good, and it's just as mean and just as difficult as any of the other branches of service. I say that all the time. To fix a tank, it's not the same as to fix a plane. I need everything on that aircraft to be done right all the time because a tank breaks. It broke on the ground. We don't. The breaking planes breaking in the air would be very problematic. And so, how do you get a force that can generate, aircraft to aircraft, sortie after sortie? You got to be tough. You got to be extremely tough, and most people don't see that portion of the Air Force. Or one of those pilots go down. We got people that will absolutely die well behind enemy lines, attempting to recover those pilots or whatever crew that could be down behind enemy line. We have people that need to make some of the most difficult decisions because they have at their finger nuclear weapons. And so, and those weapons would destroy the world over and over. And I was, messing with the Marines all the time. Like, how many Marines would it take to destroy a city? Right? You would need a whole battalion plus to go take a city. And the Air Force is sitting on thousands of weapons that can do that many times over. And you got to stay ready. You have to be precise. You have to understand what you're doing. You have to be really, really good. And you don't do that just by simply being smart. You got to be just as tough and decisive as any other branch. And so sometimes we get called the chair force because usually when people meet us from other branches, they're meeting our administrative portions of the forces. They're not doing, but that's what
you mean.
They're meeting the people
So
that
we the
are
soft people.
No, they're meeting the people that you're not supposed to be tough in the office. Just like if you go to an army, like if you go to an army office, right? If you go, because we don't interact with the army administrative forces that often from the other branches, but I got to interact with them, and guess what? They're just like the Air Force. No different, right? They're not in there doing pull-ups and stuff like that. They're the same people, same race of people. They're doing the same thing. They're sharp, taking nothing away from them. Well, they're not. Them ones jumping out of the airplane with a typewriter, or a computer, or whatever. Like, I got these admin papers and they like haloing in. That's not happening. They're doing the same thing the other administrative portions of the forces are doing. They're inside of the tech control facilities, changing out cars. They're inside of their radars, fixing it. They do have combat forces, yes, but they're not those combat forces. That's not the whole of any other branch of services. And so sometimes some people will, of course, attribute those forces as being the tough forces. Yeah. I mean, they may be out in the field a little more because that's what their doctrine calls for. Like, they ain't doing it because it's fun. They're doing it because they signed up for something, and that's what they got to do to complete their mission.
Okay. So, you did state that you had a stepdad and you have a brother. So one thing we did not cover is your birth order and the characteristics. I'm not gonna pull it up. I'm not gonna do that today. But if you believe that the characteristics describe you, so your birth order is
birth order for my mom is number 1. For my dad, number 2.
And so the description of a firstborn of the oldest, do you feel like that describes you?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm definitely bossy and pushy. Um, right, because you're the second parent, so you end up doing that a lot. And some of it comes from my dad's side of the family, which is mostly the military side. Um, there's just expectations of you, and so they have shaped some of that too.
Yeah. So, what would you say? Because I think I want to tie this to another question, but we'll see. What is one or a few changes that you think would make the Air Force or the military a little bit more bearable today?
Yeah, I got my military cyber professional association. I believe in cyber, and I want to see cyber continue to grow, especially in the military. The one thing that I think the Air Force could do better is bring back the one officers. The Air Force used to have one officers just like the other branch of service. And it's that third tier, right? They're still kind of classified as officer, but they're mixed between officer and enlisted. And the Air Force only has two tiers: enlisted, officer. And so there's a mid portion of the upper tier mid portion of the enlisted, and kind of the beginning tier going into major of the officer corps that are technical and leadership, starting out as being the kind of technical leaderish individuals. And the other services for the enlisted who are kind of bumping into that area, they could become one officers and then really become a technical leader. The Air Force does not have that. And so we end up artificially, I think, destroying individuals' careers from a technical standpoint. You have to start doing more and more administrative leadership stuff. Not saying anything is wrong with that, because we definitely need that. But you can have an individual who's really gifted at technical stuff, and because they're really gifted at technical stuff, they end up being promoted early. So you could be like a 32-year-old master sergeant, 32-year-old senior master sergeant, and you don't really touch the gear anymore. 32 years old, where some people are just kind of hitting their stride and really understanding this particular field. Um, a one officer track will help relieve some of that for us, because there's a lot of people that are frustrated and they end up getting out because they really want to stay technical. They like taking care of the soldiers, but from we say soldiers, airmen, Marines, but from a very technical standpoint. And so I think the Air Force kind of offer that. Um, I think it'd definitely be a more bearable force. It's an amazing force. I mean, the quality of life is awesome. But I think it'll get a greater return on this technical investment that they put into people.
So speaking on quality of life, and then kind of going back to deployments and the fact that a lot of people throughout your career that you met who have set you up for other things that got you into JSOC, that got you into defense attaché. I totally forgot what I was about to say. So I wanted to go and talk about support. Really, that's what I wanted to say. So support, as well as the families being well adjusted. So throughout your career and while you were deployed, Actually, you know what? No. Tell the people what was different about your career once you went the defense attaché route. And perhaps I may not even have to ask the question.
That was a tough one because it's a mix of who supports you when you're a defense attaché. Right, because I don't want to give too much away about the mechanisms. But you have to be probably a little more aggressive, ensuring that your family is supported in that system because there's so many moving parts. If you're in a traditional military unit, right, people can focus on you more. But in the defense attaché service, one day life is good, the next day you're evacuating with your bags and you're hopping on the plane. You got to get out of the country immediately, right? And some people may be coming back to a base. Some people are not coming back to a traditional base. They may be going to their parents' house. Like where you go is varied. If you have to leave the country in that way, and we just kind of the last year and a half, we had several areas around the world that where families just had to go, immediately because the area was deteriorating. So that was very stressful on the family because you just don't have some of the same traditional mechanisms in place that are there with a traditional unit. So the quality of life, though, in my eyes, was better. But I know certain things I don't really care about. I know the family, because if you're used to the way that the military operates as it relates to supporting, because if you live on base, you got a whole superstructure of support. You got places where you can buy your food. You got shopping center, other support things. In the defense attaché world, you live in that country, so it's almost like you're a lot closer to a civilian life than you are a military life. It depends on what country you're in, right? That what's available in that country could be non-existent. We lived in Switzerland, which was a extremely advanced country. And some things it definitely put the U.S. to shame on, especially when it came to food. If you, there's inside of the apartments there's like grocery stores. And cost your arm and a leg, but it was expensive. But you can never say, "Hey, I'm out of food." And you can get fondue inside of vending machines inside of Switzerland. And so that was definitely advanced. But now, so at 11 o'clock, I can go find a vending machine that had that type of stuff inside of it. Now flip it to Africa. I hope you brought a lot with you, because some of the countries don't have that. Some of the countries are built up, but some countries are not, or it's just not safe to go into certain areas, or it's just something that, and I wouldn't say safe, right? It just, you're not accustomed to it. I was comfortable in Africa because I had been introduced to the culture, but to get up and like walk down the street like you are in Switzerland, in certain countries like Rwanda, you probably can do that. Sierra Leone, it's a little bit tougher to do that, and so you really have to really concentrate on taking care of the family in ways that some military members are probably not used to doing.
Yeah. So for my end of the spousal end of this, yeah. So he said it. You have to be more aggressive when you're not assigned to the traditional military units. So way back in the day, like before our oldest was born, the Air Force instituted this thing called Wingman Warrior, or something like that. Wing something, but it was, well, I don't know if the Air Force did it or just our squadron.
Well,
but it was the person who takes care of your family when you're deployed. So whatever that was called. So that was helpful because once that started, we had our nephew, our firstborn, and yeah, that was it. So we didn't have Alex yet. So that person that was assigned to us, which is a person who worked with him, it was very helpful. That was in CE. Or was it in Comms Squad? I was in CE. So I was in a whole nother squadron. So there's his squadron is taking care of me while he's gone. Well, okay, every day I go to work, I got the people, whatever. I can say to my boss, whatever, if I get hurt, if I need a day off or whatever, that was easy. But that person dedicated to helping me, helping with the yard, helping with groceries, helping with whatever. Then once he went JSOC, it changed. It wasn't the same, and I was still assigned to a squadron, but yeah, that was different. The brotherhood that he got there. So Calvin, if you're watching, and I won't say the other names, but Calvin already been on. They were very helpful as well because those were the people who I could call when Ameer was gone. Whatever I needed, like I can call them. And then, of course, yes, it was different overseas and blah, blah, blah. And so when we got evacuated and we were back here in DC, the unit or the agency that was supposed to take care of us, it wasn't as easy. So I had to rely on the good faith of individuals assigned to this base who would respond to me on the community, the Facebook community. So, a lot of finding free dishes, finding free furniture, like all of these things came from people responding on Facebook. So, yeah. But back to him. But that's what's important, and that's like what's different about his career. His career has been like way different. Yeah. Okay, if you could choose to bring up your family in the U.S. overseas, which would you choose and why?
I like what I got to experience in my career. If I can bring my kids' family up overseas, I wouldn't keep them overseas. I like them to know that, because they won't necessarily appreciate it if they were strictly overseas, right? They wouldn't understand what's so great or what's so bad about being overseas, and then being able to grow up in the United States for a little while, grow up overseas for a little while. I think they got a better feeling for the world, that to live in another country and not necessarily be attached to a base, to be in the city of another country, integrated into the fabric of another country, I think gave. I'm hoping that it gave everyone a better appreciation, and they will ask better questions. When a politician tells them, "Oh, this is such and such," well, they've lived in another country. That's not necessarily true. Or we're the greatest at doing X. They lived in another country. They see it. I'm telling you, you got a vending machine that has fondue in it. You cannot beat that. Um, they had some other stuff in it. So this is Switzerland, and this is the part that I love about it. You can go get fondue. You can get birth control for women and men, and a coffee in vending machines. That is outrageous, and it was amazing that all of that can happen. And no one's gonna mess with the vending machine. Or you can go pluck roses, clip them yourself, and then just drop the money into the box. And then nobody there to monitor. You're like, oh, I need some flowers. Let me go down there and go get some flowers. Clip, clip, clip. Drop the money in the box. You come back. So the pace of life was definitely different. And you can be in the countryside or in the mountains or in the heart of a city within 30 minutes of all of that. So them being able to experience stuff like that, you can't tell them that public transportation is lame. They got to experience public transportation that worked. And so I would try to expose them to even more, if I could, overseas, in Europe, the Africa experience, being in the United States. I mean, because there's some things about the United States that is awesome as well. I wish I could have got them to Latin America. That was one thing. I wish I could have got them to Asian America, but I would try to expose them to everything because I know that there's good things about all these areas and there are bad things about all these areas.
Let's go ahead and ask this question.
Okay.
Looking back at all your years of service, what advice would you give people following your footsteps? And then on top of that, I want to add, what would you tell them about the Air Force?
I've been giving this advice lately. So you decide to come into the military. I think what you need to treat yourself as a business, right? The military is going to get what the military needs out of you, right? That's what it is. You're gonna have to do your deployments. You're gonna have to do your PT tests. You're gonna have to do your school. You're gonna have to do stupid stuff, filling sandbags, moving the sandbags from over here, get them all stacked up here. Someone's gonna walk over there and say, you know, you put them in the wrong place. You can get over there and put them back, and somebody's gonna show up and go, why did you move them? They need to be over there. And you're like, this is ridiculous. That is going to happen, right? That's the cost of doing business, right?
I mean, your job.
I don't know what we gotta do. Like,
go ahead, continue.
The pencil's in the wrong place. I don't know. You need to sharpen them again. I don't know. But you're gonna have your stuff that's about the military that sometimes you're like, I don't like it. But if you treat yourself as a business, you came in the military to do what? Are you trying to advance yourself personally, monetarily? Are you, right? Because you're not going to get rich in the military, but what you could do is acquire skills that could help you in the long run, right? So if I'm a business, do I need to do this? This base does this activity. How can I find a way to get to this base? This unit does this type of work. How can I get to that type of unit, right? So to improve myself, me as a business, right? Because when you finish with the military, you're finished. All you're gonna have is your memories and your good friends, and people are gonna say how awesome you are, but you are done. And the military owes you nothing else after that point. But while you're in, you should definitely be looking at ways to maximize the military. Yeah, I mean, second languages that have helped out. Some skills that I'm currently utilizing right now has helped out tremendously. But kind of in the midpoint of my career, and I talked to the admiral. who was my boss at the time. And he said one thing about enlisted that it's always baffled him is that officers are always taught to kind of think about their next job, right? And what he was saying is like, yeah, they're responsible for the development of themselves, right? What are you trying to become, and where are you going to go? Is that going to help you become that? There's a path, right? They're trying to work it out to where they can maximize themselves, right? So no wasted effort. And sometimes on the enlisted side, we just go with whatever someone tells us to do. This is your next assignment. Okay, I'll go there. And not saying they don't go do a good job. Then they go, oh, this is your next assignment. This kind of roll with it versus saying, I want to get here. They do this mission here. These individuals, like these opportunities are here. Even sometimes in the city itself, like, oh, I want to get down to somewhere around the Houston area because they're doing this. I want to get somewhere around the Austin area because they're doing tech. I want to get into the DC area because that's where the politics are. So finding ways to get there and thinking about yourself, I'm building my brand. And once I'm finished with the military, I get to then, utilize this stuff. Or sometimes people get to the end and they don't have much to show for it other than really good stories. And so advising someone who's going to come in, really think about treating yourself as a business and not just going with the punches. Sometimes you will have to do that because that's what it means to be in the military. But you have a lot more control than you realize. And the earlier you recognize that, then the better off you will be in your career.
So do you think the Air Force or the military shaped the person that you are today?
Absolutely. It's good being blue. I was around some really, we talked about earlier, some trash individuals along the way. But for the most part, I was around amazing people, legendary people. I was in these specialized units, but it was somewhere along the line, and the Air Force person helped me get there. And so the Air Force has done me a great service. There are things that I would try to change about the Force, but they're minor. The Force is good. It's becoming better and better. It does need to tighten up in some areas to make sure that it doesn't lose focus as being a war fighter. But that's why I think I want the Air Force to have warrant officers. I don't want to switch to another service to become a warrant officer there. I would like to be a warrant officer in the Air Force because I like the precision and sharpness that has come with this branch of service. And there are people that have helped me become a lot smarter. I met my wife. But I like the Air Force.
All right, so we're gonna be wrapping up. So if y'all have any questions, go ahead. It's y'all time to throw them questions in the chat. Pretty sure we know, but don't know. People on the internet don't know this, but I know this. So did the military prepare you for what you're doing today?
Yeah, it did. So I got my education through the military. I'm currently finishing up more classes, and I will be done with my master's in cybersecurity from the University of Arizona. And so I've gotten, the Air Force not directly, but been given an opportunity to go to some great schools. I received some great technical training All the way back when I was, NCIC or whatever, young pup, um, or inside of the maintenance support office inside of our unit that was responsible for measurements and understanding and ensuring the quality of the work stayed up, and if there was any problems, addressing them and trying to detect them. All the way back then, so I got to kind of build upon that, and in each of the phases of my military career, I got to build upon that core skill. And then when I went off to get higher education, it complemented some of the courses that was inside of that. And then at the end of my career, I did the skill bridge, which then allowed me to get some certification and more practice in what I do now, which is data analytics. So it was just a steady build up for the military and the Air Force. It's definitely helped me to what I do today.
So that is all the questions that I have written down. So again, if y'all have anything that y'all want to ask that you didn't hear or learn about, drop it now. Is there anything while we wait that do you want to expound on? Is there anything you want to add to if someone was looking to join the military that you would, what advice would you give them?
I would say do your homework. I think recruiters are going to recruit. So they got a job and you got a job too. That's about you treating yourself as a business. They are trying to recruit you. That's their job. And so nothing against any of that, but you have a job. That's your first job in the military. Is when the moment you consider to go in, then you need to do your homework and you need to ask tough questions and utilize other resources outside of just your recruiters. Not saying all the information is going to be legit, but definitely get different thoughts on things. Talking to veterans out there going, hey, I want to do this. Is this true? Do I have to do this right here? And if they're willing to go with you down to the recruiting office, go to the recruiting, down to the recruiter's office. Also, I mean, we need great officers too. So don't limit yourself to just being enlisted. There are different programs that you can go through to become a military officer. So think about those programs as well. But do your homework. Just because someone says you have to do this, you ain't got to do nothing because you're not in yet. All the branches of service are going to offer something to you, and take a look at all of them. Do I want you to become part of the Air Force? Absolutely. Biased towards that. But Army offers some great programs. One of my good brothers, right? Gus, he just finished up. His name is Dr. Right down. And the Army took good care of him. And I've got, Navy, Marine brothers and sisters who are top notch in the things that they do. And so all the branches of service are going to do some awesome stuff for you, but you should do your homework first and don't get caught up on pitches, because pitches are not going to take care of you in 4 years or how long you decide to serve.
So our closing, I forgot to ask someone this question, but what is the one thing that you're going to do for your mental health this week?
One thing I'm going to do for my mental health this week?
Yeah. I
played capoeira. I was going to say something else, but I think this is PG-13. But I played capoeira, Afro-Brazilian martial arts. Look it up. And so that helps because I get to play music, I get to sing, I get to be around other people that are just awesome. And I get to watch my kids play sports. Right, my son, his team plays here in a few hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so I get the chill. Nothing is. I don't have to rush off to do anything. So just kind of hanging with the family, hanging with friends and stuff. It's good for the mental health.
So the question: breakfast in our house. You're making us pancakes or waffles?
I'm a troll.
Nope.
I ain't making nobody nothing. No, but if the waffle maker works, I will make waffles. That's what I'm making. Waffles with bits of pecans inside of it.
Yeah, so if y'all new to my channel, y'all should already know that I'm with pancakes. So yeah, if y'all coming over and I'm making breakfast, it's pancakes. But it's about him, but our different cultures. Why do you want waffles?
See, no, let me address
before we close, because we're talking about culture. So why do you want waffles?
Wait a minute. Slow your roll. Let me get this out here since the internet is recording this right here. I'm Gullah Geechee. We have a very distinct culture, where we're from and how we do things, right? All the rest of y'all, except our cousins out in like New Orleans or whatever, all the rest of y'all are country. There is no such thing as the Midwest. It is the South. No. Missouri is the South, and you Marylanders, that straight line between you and Pennsylvania is for a reason. You are also the South. All y'all country. That's why you eating pancakes, because you country. That's why. They'll be like, I eat they're not crepes. They're pancakes. Because y'all country. That's exactly what you're about to do. Thank you. Ugh, crepes. Because you're country.
Yeah. Okay.
So, waffles. What else?
That's it. Waffles.
Yeah, waffles.
Unless, we still got people watching. So we all did together another video. You should go back and watch it. It's a culture of how you do something. So let's talk about grits, and then we log off to the people. So grits, if you adding grits to the breakfast, how are grits supposed to be made?
Not like how y'all be making them. You gonna put some milk or something else in there, or you just gonna just straight water, huh? Throw some milk in that thing, whip that thing up. See, because I feel people in the Midwest think they from the West Coast, Daryl. So I put some milk in there, hit that thing with some mixture. You got a little season, some butter, throw a little bouillon inside that bad boy. Chicken, if you feeling like chicken today, you feeling like beef tomorrow, whatever. But make that thing a meal, not just like some instant grits. You pour water inside of it and be like, yeah, I made grits. And then you grow up and say, I didn't really like grits. That wasn't grits. That was space food you were eating.
So all the extra stuff that he's just said, like that was extra. That was in the later years of us being together. So he used to just say salt, butter, and cheese.
I was trying to get a girl. Guys, y'all know how it is, right? You're trying to get a girl. You gotta get her to commit to you first. And once you commit, and then some kids in there, like I got it now, then I can be like, I really wanted this the whole time. Get rid of that right there.
Cheese and grits, that was enough. But no.
For you?
I grew up with sugar in the grits. That's how I grew up. That's how I was raised. You're supposed to have some butter and some sugar in your grits. But okay, whatever. We grew up together, and so we eat a little bit more healthy.
Wish I had more thumbs.
A little healthier now in this household. So it's breakfast is one thing, otherwise at lunch or at dinner.
Is there a difference there? In reality, yes, thank you, Daryl. In reality, see, I love those comments coming in. What does Davida say?
She didn't like grits. Probably because you ate malto meal, right?
Well, you didn't like
you ate malto meal.
You didn't like grits growing up because I don't cook.
Whatever.
I wouldn't like them. I wouldn't like them either if I had them. Because this is one of the things of the military. The military will make you not like grits as well. Because when you're going through the child line, especially in basic training, right? It used to hurt me to my heart because people was making lifelong decisions based on grits, going off of what was happening in basic training. And that joint was watered down, and you can like drink the grits through a straw. And I'm like, no, guys, that's not how you do grits, right? And now people in their mind, they don't like grits, and it's based on some watery concoction.
Yeah, we know malto meal and grits, but for us, you know, if we had grits, at least in my household, in some area, grits has sugar in it. But if you didn't eat grits, you ate malto meal or you had cream of wheat. So Davida didn't like grits, but she probably was eating malto meal or cream of wheat. So hey, that sticks to the bones just as well as y'all gully geechee grits. Okay, so y'all tuned in to learn about Ameer's Air Force career.
James Brown ate grits.
I hope that y'all learned something that you didn't already know about him, and the family as well. But not in the yeah. She could go in everything. So you know, whatever. Yeah. So I hope y'all learned something. You know, you continue to drop comments and questions even after this is loaded, and then you know we can respond to the video. Again, happy birthday, Marines! Happy Veterans Day to our fellow vets, and we thank you guys for taking some time out of your day, especially if y'all like at a barbecue or whatever. But thank you for taking time out of your day to watch, and so y'all know how we end.
I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. I would like to thank my guests for joining me, or simply thank you for watching the pre-recorded episode. No matter what your birth order is, how you self-identify, and whether you like pancakes or waffles. If this is the first time you're hearing it today, I want you to know that you are loved. You were put here for a purpose that only you can fulfill. Until next time, take care of yourself. Be sure that you like and share the videos, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notifications bell. This is Real Ram out.